All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode here at Whiteboard Medicine. We appreciate you checking it out. Hope everybody's having a lovely day, lovely weekend, lovely evening or morning, depending on when you watch this. Today we're going to be diving into the beloved Dexmedetomidine, brand name Precedex, in the mechanically ventilated patient. This is a really important topic. Dexmedetomidine has really exploded in its use cases, and there's some decent data behind it as well. And you are going to be seeing this whether you are in the emergency department with critically ill patients, those on mechanical ventilation, or up in the intensive care units. You definitely will come across this. So by the end of this episode, we hope you understand what dexmedetomidine is, what it isn't, how to use it, how to dose it. Although, as always, none of this is intended to be acted upon medical advice. This is all conceptual, all educational. Please do your own research. Refer to your own hospital's guidelines. Wonderful. Let's continue. Adverse effects, how to monitor it, how to titrate it, and then we'll end with some practice questions. So no further ado, let's dive into dexmedetomidine. So what is dexmedetomidine and what isn't? So dexmedetomidine, often referred to as Dex, D-E-X, is an intravenous sedative medication. If I could borrow a quick 60 seconds of your time, I wanted to introduce you to a community we're really excited about building, and that is our Patreon community. In this community, you will get access to high-yield medical education posts, ad-free videos, study guides, practice questions, mini courses, book chapters, and much more. You will see that by joining this community, you will get access to the PDFs, the study guides for every single YouTube video. Here's an example of one of those right now. In addition to that, you will get access to mini courses. In these courses, we will have videos, study guides, practice questions, bedside tips and tricks, and 30 practice questions at the end to test your knowledge. In addition to that, we have collections on every major emergency critical care topic that contains videos, medical education posts, practice questions, study guides, all categorized. And lastly, we have book chapters. These book chapters are high-yield clinical reviews, such as this one on the basics of mechanical ventilation. Beyond that, we have ad-free videos, we have practice questions, and we are constantly innovating and integrating new resources for you all. If you have a passion for emergency critical care medicine like us, consider joining this community today. In it, we hope that you will find all the resources necessary to push your knowledge to the next level and really improve the bedside care of these critically ill patients. People often refer to it as compared to some of the other sedatives like propofol and midazolam, although we don't tend to use much midazolam. When they compare it to those two, they kind of say, it creates a more arousable and cooperative sedation state. And this is mostly true, although not perfectly true, but patients tend to be more quote-unquote awake than patients who are on propofol, and certainly than those on midazolam. It helps with anxiety, agitation, ventilator tolerance, although we're going to cross that out because we feel passionately that ventilator desynchrony should be addressed on the ventilator until you're out of options, in which case sedation is not unreasonable. And one of the really nice things about dexmedetomidine is it causes minimal respiratory depression. So when we're trying to lighten sedation, or we're trying to assess readiness, or we have to keep someone on some low dose sedation, even when we want to extubate them, you can extubate patients on dexmedetomidine who meet criteria because it has very minimal respiratory depression. That's in comparison to something like propofol or midazolam, which have lots of respiratory depression. Although I guess can't speak for everybody, but it would be atypical and very high risk to extubate anybody on a propofol infusion. It is not a primary analgesic. We want to point that out, right? This is not a medication that's used primarily to treat pain. And in mechanically ventilated patients, we often have what we call an analgesia first strategy, which means that we should treat patients' pain first, rather than just try to sedate the pain away from them. So analgesia first, and dexmedetomidine is not a primary analgesic. Just as a shout out, we have a whole bunch of episodes on sedation and pain control and all that in the mechanically ventilated. One of the pain scores people use is called the CPOT score. So if you have an interest in learning more about that, just search Whiteboard Medicine CPOT, C-P-O-T, and it'll pop up. But yes, now with that being said, dexmedetomidine does have some pain control properties, okay? So you're getting a little bit of analgesia while using dexmedetomidine, although that's not its primary property. If you are targeting deep sedation, goodness forbid someone is so sick and they're being paralyzed for whatever reason, and you need to put them in deep sedation to then give them neuromuscular blockade, dexmedetomidine is not ideal as the only agent. It doesn't often reach deep enough sedation levels to be the only agent. So you most likely will need an additional or alternate agent. But for those who you're targeting light sedation, right, those that you're, trying to get more awake or get off the ventilator, dexmedetomidine is a really nice drug. Mechanism of action, how does it work? So dexmedetomidine is a selective alpha-2 adrenergic agonist. That is a mouthful. So it is a selective alpha-2 is the receptor, adrenergic because they're catecholaminergic receptors, and agonist means it stimulates it. So what does that mean? It really decreases sympathetic outflow, right? Sympatholysis, lyses the sympath, decreases sympathetic outflow. That makes patients calmer, lower catecholamine tone. It resembles kind of like a sleepy-ish state. They can often awake and follow commands, all that kind of stuff. So, like, from a summary standpoint, dexmedetomidine mechanistically is an alpha-2 agonist that works centrally, and it causes sympatholysis, or decreased sympathetic outflow, which leads to this kind of arousable state of sedation. When is it especially useful on the vent? Well, Dex really shines when your sedation goal is that light sedation, right? That RASS of 0 to -1. If RASS is a foreign concept to you, the Richmond Agitation Sedation Score, again, search Whiteboard Medicine RASS. We got some episodes on it. But when you're really targeting that light sedation, you want better participation in a neuro exam. You don't want a patient snowed at all. Maybe you're transitioning them to spontaneous breathing trial to get them ready to extubate, all that kind of stuff. Dexmedetomidine is a really nice drug in these instances, probably one of the better ones. How do we dose it? Titration, practical bedside strategy. We would be remiss if we just didn't say one more time, this is all educational and conceptual. None of this is intended to be acted upon directly as medical advice. All right, typical ICU infusion dosing. In the intubated patient in the ICU, we typically do a maintenance infusion, and the dosing here is often around 0.2 to 0.7 micrograms per kilogram per hour, okay? So this is a weight-based dose, micrograms per kilogram per hour. And this is going to be titrated to your sedation level. Okay, you're saying, what's my RASS goal? My RASS goal is 0 to -1. I'm going to titrate my dexmedetomidine infusion to get to that level. What dose to initiate it at is highly variable. Some people start at 0.2, some at 0.4. Institutions have different protocols related to this, but it's not uncommon for it to get dosed up to 1 microgram per kilogram per hour in the ICU. Okay, that would be higher doses of dexmedetomidine, but not like, crazy, wild, what are we doing type of doses. In the world in general, you can give a loading dose of dexmedetomidine. Now, this is not commonly done in the ICU, at least in our anecdotal experience. But if you look at the drug itself, loading dose is not something that is unreasonable in some contexts. Now, the loading dose can cause worsening bradycardia and hypotension. I think that's probably a reason most of us don't tend to do it. And why do it? But it is something possible, just more as an informative little side comment. Titration approach. So after you start it at whatever dose you choose, maybe you're starting at something like 0.2, 0.3 micrograms per kilogram per hour. Most people will titrate it by 0.1 to 0.2 micrograms per kilogram per hour. Every 15 to 30 minutes is a common kind of titration duration, right? Because you want it to reach its steady state, its threshold, before you then make a dose change. Okay, and again, most titrated to a RASS goal of -1 to 0. -0 doesn't exist. Okay, so starting dose 0.2 to 0.3 micrograms per kilogram per hour, titrate by 0.1 to 0.2 micrograms per kilogram per hour every 15 to 30 minutes to reach your desired RASS goal. Again, if you are trying to target deep sedation, dexmedetomidine is probably not your best hammer. Propofol would be a more achievable agent there. Dose reductions, just note that those elderly greater than 65 years old and those with liver impairment sometimes need a little bit of a dose reduction, but you're titrating it to effect anyways. So just, FYI of note. What to monitor for when your patient is on dexmedetomidine. The big watch-outs here are bradycardia. This is probably the number 1, 2, and 3 thing to watch out for. Dexmedetomidine is classic for causing bradycardia, and it's sometimes significant, right? Sometimes these heart rates can way drop, and in a patient who's maybe in shock or sick, dropping their heart rate can be a really big negative thing. What is our cardiac output? Our cardiac output equals stroke volume times heart rate. So if my dexmedetomidine is decreasing my heart rate and my stroke volume can't go up because I'm critically ill, that means dexmedetomidine is decreasing my cardiac output. So you got to be really vigilant for this. And if it's happening, you have to then decide, is this causing hemodynamic issues or not? And even a better way to describe it would probably be, is this causing perfusion issues or not? It can cause maybe some degree of hypotension. That's less common in its purest form. Obviously, causing bradycardia can cause hypotension, but causing hypotension without bradycardia is less common, although can happen. If you do load, sometimes there's this reflexive initial hypertension that occurs. I feel like anecdotally you don't see this happen that often, but you will read about it. And then obviously you're monitoring your sedation targets with your RASS score, like we've talked about. All right, adverse effects, the must-know list, just to dive into it more. We already talked about bradycardia. This is the most characteristic adverse effect of dexmedetomidine. You're higher risk if a patient has baseline bradycardia, any conduction disease at baseline, high vagal tone, on AV nodal blockers, or if you give a loading dose, right? Some would suggest that in these patients, maybe you should avoid dexmedetomidine. Think about a different agent just because you're very high risk for bradycardia. Another one we talked about, adverse effects are hypotension. You get decreased sympathetic tone. How do you vasoconstrict your peripheral blood vessels? You do so using sympathetic tone. So if you're decreasing sympathetic tone, you can cause some degree of vasodilation and hypotension, especially if you're hypovolemic to start, right? If someone's normotensive, you put them on dexmedetomidine, they become hypotensive. Something to think about is, are they actually hypovolemic? Did you unmask the hypovolemia? Another thing to note, which we'd mentioned, was hypertension initially with a loading dose. This is not very common, but peripheral alpha-2 effects can cause transient hypertension if you're giving a rapid load. And then the fourth thing to note is withdrawal after prolonged use. This is definitely a real thing. If someone's been on a prolonged infusion of dexmedetomidine, you abruptly discontinue it. It may cause a withdrawal pathodrome, which often looks like agitation, tachycardia, and hypertension in some patients. Clonidine is an oral medication. It also comes in patch form. That is also an alpha-2 agonist. And if someone has been on a prolonged infusion of dexmedetomidine, some folks will do a clonidine taper, right? So the dexmedetomidine comes off, and then they use clonidine in tapered dosing over a couple of days to then prevent or treat that withdrawal pathodrome. Contraindications and major precautions. This is mostly related around the heart rate issue, right? So extreme caution if a patient has baseline bradycardia or any AV block, okay? Profound hemodynamic stability is not an absolute contraindication, but you just got to be cognizant because you're going to drop that heart rate. I should say potentially drop that heart rate, which can decrease cardiac output. And then if you need deep sedation, that's kind of a relative contraindication here because dexmedetomidine will not achieve that alone. Research guidelines related to dexmedetomidine use in the mechanically ventilated patient. The 2018 SCCM guidelines, suggest using propofol or dexmedetomidine over benzodiazepines, so avoid benzodiazepines in the mechanically ventilated sedated patient. There was a focus update in 2025 that maybe suggested dexmedetomidine actually over propofol when you're targeting light sedation, that RASS of 0 to -1. Or delirium reduction, because dexmedetomidine does have some research on delirium reduction, which maybe we should have included in this episode. We didn't. If that's some interest to folks, let us know. We could put out a little kind of short update about dexmedetomidine and the data on delirium reduction. All right, head-to-head trials between propofol and dexmedetomidine. There was a major trial, the MENS 2 trial. There was not a meaningful difference between dex and prop in days alive without delirium or coma, ventilator-free days, or 90-day mortality. Great trial. Well done. We enjoy it. Okay, practical takeaway. Dexmedetomidine is an excellent drug for maintaining light sedation, facilitating ventilator weaning. Not necessarily better than propofol from a hard outcome standpoint, but there's maybe some suggestion that dexmedetomidine in those where you're really focusing on light sedation, getting off the ventilator, or preventing delirium, maybe some suggestion that dexmedetomidine might be a little better than propofol, but that's extrapolated, not kind of evidentiary confirmation there. Okay, rough approach for an educational standpoint. Decide your sedation goal. If it's RASS is 0, then -1, treat pain first. We have an analgesia first strategy. You don't want to try to sedate the pain out of someone. If you treat pain first and you have not met your RASS of 0 to -1, consider using dexmedetomidine if you're able to. If they're not bradycardic, they don't have AV nodal blocking issues, maybe their hemodynamics will tolerate it well. Start at 0.2 to 0.3 micrograms per kilogram per hour. Titrate it slowly, Q 15 to 30 minutes. If there's any bradycardia or hypotension, you really got to think about, are they hypovolemic? And should I be stopping the Dex, especially for bradycardia? All right, that's all we have. Let's dive into some practice questions. For those of you that made it to the end of this episode, y'all are rock stars. Our practice questions, we have 3 of them, beginner, intermediate, and advanced in that order. We will read the question, read the 4 answer options, and then we will go right into the answer. So if you need more time to think about the answer, just pause the episode because we're just going to jump right into the answer. Question 1, dexmedetomidine produces sedation primarily through A, GABA A, B, mu opioid, C, alpha-2 adrenergic agonism, or D, NMDA antagonism. Pause if you need to. The correct answer is C, right? Dexmedetomidine is an alpha-2 adrenergic agonist. GABA A would be propofol. Mu would be something like morphine or other opiates. NMDA, ketamine is actually NMDA, so that's something good to note. But yes, dexmedetomidine or Dex is alpha-2 adrenergic agonist. All right, question 2. Which adverse effect is most characteristic of dexmedetomidine in ICU sedation? A, severe respiratory depression, B, bradycardia, C, malignant hyperthermia, or D, propofol infusion syndrome. Hopefully you don't choose that last choice. Correct answer is B. Dexmedetomidine is a sympatholytic, right? It decreases sympathetic outflow. It is classic for causing B, bradycardia. It does not cause severe respiratory depression. You can extubate on dexmedetomidine. It does not cause malignant hyperthermia, and propofol causes propofol infusion syndrome rather than dexmedetomidine. We have episodes on propofol too, so just search Whiteboard Medicine propofol, and you can learn all about that one. Last question, question 3. A mechanically ventilated patient is being prepared for an SBT. You want light sedation, RASS of -1 to 0, with the ability to wake and follow commands, but the patient's heart rate is 48 with intermittent second-degree AV block. What is the best interpretation? A, dexmedetomidine is ideal because it supports hemodynamics. B, dexmedetomidine is relatively contraindicated due to bradycardia and conduction disease. C, dexmedetomidine provides strong analgesia so it can replace opiates. Or D, give a loading dose to rapidly reach steady state and reduce desynchrony. Correct answer is B, dexmedetomidine often worsens bradycardia and conduction abnormalities. In a patient with a heart rate of 48 and intermittent AV block, it is a highly risky choice. Consider alternate strategies. And dexmedetomidine does not support hemodynamics. It does not provide strong analgesia, although it does provide some analgesia. And giving a loading dose in a patient who's already bradycardic, that's even riskier than starting it in general. All right, that's all we have for you today. Thanks for checking it out. Let us know what thoughts, comments, questions you have down below. Again, we got a whole series of episodes on sedation, pain, agitation, delirium in those mechanically ventilated, including propofol, dexmedetomidine, fentanyl, ketamine, CPOTS, RASS, CAM ICU, probably other ones we're forgetting right now. So certainly check those out. We also are very involved in our Patreon YouTube members community. We'd love for you to join. All that is linked in the video description or episode description, as well as the YouTube video pinned comment. Either way, stay well, keep learning. Hey everybody, and welcome to Whiteboard Medicine. We appreciate you checking out the video. Here at Whiteboard Medicine, our goal is to create medical education content for all types of interested learners. That includes videos, practice questions, study resources, and much more. We would love for you to join our community by subscribing, hit that bell button. We're also working to build a high-yield Patreon page. It's going to be full of practice questions, video outlines, notes, commercial-free content, and much more.
None of these videos are intended to be acted upon as medical advice. Please pause the video here and read this disclaimer in its entirety before moving on.